Okay, let's talk about automation because automation is trickier in session view. Because if you remember, when we looked at automation in arrangement view, we needed the timeline, right? We turned on automation and then we got the big line going all the way across the timeline. And then we could change something over time. Session view, no timeline. So how do we do automation? You still can. Let's look at our. So let's take a bigger clip. Let's just say let's just look for an audio loop of a synth riff. Okay, that's cool. Let's put this on a new audio clip or a new audio track. So I'm just going to drag it over to an empty area, put it right there. It's going to make a new audio track for us. Okay, so this is cool. Let's just hear it with our kick and our snare. Okay, so what if I want this to fade in? I've got two things I got to think about. One is, what do I want that fade to do when it comes to the loop? That's the big question. Do I want the fade to loop? And then I want the fade to start over at the beginning of every loop? If so, that's easy. We don't call it automation in session view, we call it an envelope. So I'm going to go here to this tab in my clip view, and I'm going to say, it says envelopes clip gain. That's what I want. So now we see this is the volume of our clip. It's all the way up. Okay, let's take it down to 0, and let's have this clip fade in, for the first half. Okay, so about halfway, I'm going to make a point, I'm going to fade it in. Now, important here is we're looking at the clip gain. Okay, there's multiple things we could do, and this is the same as our automation parameters, right? It's the double drop down menu. We've seen this before, except now it's side to side. Okay, so now what we've done here is we're going to ramp up the volume of this clip, but the envelope is attached to the clip, not the timeline. There's no timeline. So that means that when we get to the end of the clip, when we circle around, the volume is going to jump back down to 0 and then fade up again. Let me show you. Okay, so that might be what you want. If that's what you want, then you're golden. You're done. But if that's not what you want, if you want to say, I want this clip to fade up and then stay up and just keep looping, what you then want is to go here where it says a linked loop. Okay, this means the automation is linked to the loop. That's what we're doing now. If we turn that off, now the automation is not linked to the loop. So when I press play now, the envelope is going to play, and then it's just going to keep going. The loop will continue to happen, and this automation is essentially its own loop. Okay, so if I press play now, it's going to fade in. Okay, and it's going to loop because the automation is set to loop. Let's turn that off. Okay, now the automation isn't looping anymore. So now it's going to stay up. Okay, so I keep saying automation when I should be saying envelope. So keep in mind, we're really dealing with envelopes here. Now there's another thing you can do here, is you can loop this You can loop your envelope, but set it to a different length of time. This is actually really fun. So if I say length, let's say 16 bars. Okay, so if we're going to have to do a little bit of math here really quick. If this loop, how long is this loop? This loop is 4 bars long, right? There's bar 4. So this loop is 4 bars long. So if our envelope is 16 bars long, 4, 8, 12, 16. It means 4 passes through the loop. So what I could do is, just for fun, this. What's going to happen now is that this envelope is going to make the volume of the clip fade up, okay, over 4 bars. So that's the first entire pass of the clip. Okay, at the end of the first pass of the clip is going to loop around, but the automation is going to keep going. The automation is a much longer clip, right? So this is going to keep going. So the second pass of the loop is going to be to here, right? And the volume is going to be up. The third pass is going to be here, and the volume is going to be up. The fourth pass is going to be here, and the volume is going to be up. The fifth pass, the envelope is going to loop, and the volume is going to jump down. Okay, and then it's going to ramp up again. Let's do it. Okay, so really what we're doing is when we have unlinked loop selected, we're thinking about the envelope as its own clip is really what's happening. It's got its own loop length, and it can have its own parameters. And it can have multiple parameters, by the way. We could go mixer and panning. We could set the panning to be linked or unlinked. Let's say unlinked. And let's say we want to go, let's set a length of 16 also. It can be as long as you want. So let's say the panning goes all over the place and ends up back center. Okay? So now the panning is going to move all the way around over the course of 4 cycles through the loop. So let's go back to the clip gain. Now, if I wanted to make this smooth, what I might do is take the last cycle and bring it down to 0. Right? Because now it's going to start, when the loop cycles back again of the envelope, it's going to end at the same spot. So let's hear it once. Remember, now we're going to hear panning going crazy, and you may or may not hear the panning depending on the video settings that you're listening on. And the volume is going to fade up, and then at the end it's going to fade down and start over and fade up. Cool, right? So that's kind of how we deal with automation in session view when we don't have a timeline.